we could start, I guess. Yeah. Good morning, everyone in Georgia, and good morning, everyone in Japan. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Victor Kipiani, chair for Geocase, Tbilisi-based think tank, and it's my special honor and delight to be joined by very distinguished guests and people. Let me welcome at this webinar His Excellency Mr. Imamura Akira, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Japan to Georgia, and a special welcome to our special guest, Dr. JIMBO, Professor at the Faculty of Policy Management at Keio University from Japan. Thank you, gentlemen, and let me also mention with my special feelings that we're also joined and delighted to have Dr. Emil Avdaliani, who is the Director of Middle East Studies at Geocase. Let me extend my special thanks to the Embassy of Japan, who is the great supporter and great partner. And actually, this is our second webinar highlighting the issues of Japan foreign policy. The very first webinar, which we had a while ago, was on Japan's policy versus Georgia and on bilateral cooperation. This time we have a very new concept to discuss from Georgian perspective, which is about free and open Indo-Pacific. But let me sum up that this concept is not just about open and unrestricted maritime navigation. It's a much broader concept. It's a concept about an overall geopolitical and security design in Indo and Pacific region, which implies various elements and various components, including the policies of the United States, the implications of the so-called pivot to Asia, implications of Chinese, let me put in this way, articulated policies of the recent time, and which also in the near future would reflect a very key premise of the global geopolitical design. And to us, to Georgians, this concept of free and open Indo-Pacific is interesting also not just from theoretical points of view, but in terms of its practicalities, because we're the Black Sea nation, and with all the ramifications in the Black Sea, both positive ramifications and negative ramifications, with Russia's assertiveness to turn Black Sea into the closed and Russian lake. Of course, the various details of free and open in the Pacific, again, not just the subject matter of theoretical discussions, but of practicalities in terms of Georgian policy. And therefore, I think that this webinar would provide us with a very valuable knowledge and very practicable insight. So again, with all my sincere greetings to the audience and to our guests, before we proceed with substantive discussions, let me welcome His Excellency, Mr. Akira, Imamura Akira. Your Excellency, please, it's your turn to give us your welcome note, and we very much delight to have you, and thank you for all the great support and for all the great input into promoting our bilateral ties and cooperation. Thank you, sir.
Victor, thank you very much. And thank you very much, Jimbo-san. Jimbo-san and I met 5 or 6 years ago in Canberra when he was in Australia. And I was so impressed with his presentation as a very prominent international security expert from Japan, presenting the views at that time. It was still early stage of our policy towards Indo-Pacific, but now the situation has, I would say, dramatically changed. Unfortunate for kind of a seriously difficult direction. But at the same time, there are a lot of positive events happening in order to cope with this situation. So I very much look forward to Professor's presentation today. It's very timely because the European Union has been very positively activated to be more involved in this region, starting from their publishment of their policy towards this region in spring this year. And as late as last week, they have published another elaboration. So if Georgia is going to be part of the European Union, you will be making contributions as well as being, participating in EU's joint actions. So it's very relevant. And also it's timely because this week, as one of the probably last international events for Prime Minister Suga of Japan, before he leaves his cabinet, his position as a prime minister at the end of this or early next month, he'll be participating the first time in face-to-face Quad summit in the United States. So I think what you will hear today will be very timely and as well as very relevant for Georgia. So with that, I would like to welcome Professor Jimbo. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you so much indeed. And let me also share the same delight which I've already expressed at the opening of this webinar to Jimbo-san. Thank you, Dr. Jimbo, for joining us. I had a chance to go through various papers which he wrote about the Indo-Pacific and Japan's foreign policy, and indeed, those papers are of great encouragement to all the scholars who are interested with the region and interested with the secure design. We hope to have some sort of insightful discussions, not just in course of your presentation, but at the end of your presentation. I have a few questions, and hopefully some questions would reach us from the audience. But before that, let me give you the floor. And again, a very warm welcome to you. Thank you so much indeed.
Well, thank you very much. And I would like to begin by thanking Geocase, especially Chairman Kipiani, for inviting me to this very invaluable seminar. And also thank you for Japanese Embassy, especially Ambassador Imamura, for facilitating this event. And obviously, this is my first appearance to the Georgian think tank, and I'm very delighted to get in touch with you, and also having this opportunity to have a discussion on the fascinating theme on Indo-Pacific. My only regret was I was not able to have a chance to visit physically, to interact, due to all the pandemic situation. But once it recovers as a normal situation, I hope to seek a chance to visit you one time in the near future. And also, thank you very much, Director Avdaliani, for taking your special opportunity to be part of this conference, and I'll be very much looking forward to having an interaction with you. So I have prepared the several slides to just to introduce my talk, and let me use my function to share my slides, and I hope that is working fine. And I think I'll be talking 15 to 20 minutes as the maximum, as Chairman mentioned that we need the time to have a good interactions with all the participants. So it is the concept about the Indo-Pacific, and this is something that Japanese government, together with the regional major powers, have been promoting to forge as a new regional concept. And then it's been quite successful and become one of the diplomatic gravity and to forge the new kind of regionality of the Indo-Pacific region. And something that Ambassador has already mentioned is that there are so many players have been plug and play to this Indo-Pacific region. And so this is not only a geographical concept, but it is the concept to promote the rule-based international order, and also to forge the new regional order that is open, free, and also people can actually pursue for the prosperity for the future. So that's one of the reasons why the EU, European nations have been quite eager to use it as a main diplomatic concept to engage in this region. And as the actual origin of this concept has been laid out by then Prime Minister Abe back in 2016 when he attended the TICAD 6 meeting in Africa, where for the first time that the Japanese government has officialized this concept as the benchmark concept for Japan to engage in the region. But it's not totally new to promote this kind of, the regional interaction concept, because that has been the evolutionary process in Asia or in the wider Asia Pacific to forge the new dynamics of the region since back in 1980s. And as you are all aware that in 1980s, there has been the newly emerging economies in Asia, triggered by the economic developments of the Korea, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore. We call it NEAS, and followed by the gigantic growth of China and also the Southeast Asian nations. And many regional players wish to be part of this economic dynamics to forge the new regional concept called the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, called the APEC. And this has been promoting the wider Asia Pacific cooperation since back in 1980s. But the following events has made the so-called elasticity, back and forth about the regional concept to be, organized back in the 1990s. You can name it ASEAN plus 3. ASEAN is 10 countries, consists of the, Southeast Asian nations, who has been promoting the institutional process of the regionalism in Asia. They have provided very important platform for the multilateralism in this region. They have made ASEAN plus 3 because they have to deal with the Asian financial crisis in 1997. And then they found out the very kind of, compact platform for the regional players to get in play with political, economic, and social cooperation under the framework of the ASEAN Plus processes. And also the ASEAN and regional player has found the utility of engaging the major player under this framework that led the formation of the new platform like East Asian Summit in 2005, and that has also been extended to 18 countries as of now. That includes the United States and Russia nowadays. In 2010s, the Indo-Pacific has now come to play as a major platform of the regional interactions, and that concept has the couple of important pillars when we talk about the features of what the Indo-Pacific represents. As a geographical scope, the Japanese government has been arguing that this is the connectivity projects. What connects A and B is that one is the kind of the maritime context. So it's a confluence of the two oceans, which is the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean, and also that connectivity also oversights the landmass, continental aspects that really covers the wide range of the Eurasian continents. And when you look at the key concept, what the Japanese government has been promoting, there has been the 3 pillars that has been outlined as a very important essence of it. The one is the promotion and establishment of the rule of law, freedom of navigation, and free trade. So that is a very kind of comprehensive concept to set out the kind of standards of the cooperation and what has been the principle of the regional order to be established in the Indo-Pacific regions. And secondly, obviously, that the Indo-Pacific promotes the economic prosperity through improving the connectivity concept that involves the physical connectivity, people-to-people connectivity, and also the institutional connectivity. And one thing to remind is that, as I introduced since back in 1980s, that each kind of regional concept has come up with some kind of institutional processes like APEC, ARF, EAS, and so on. But as of now, that Indo-Pacific, one of the features is that there has not been a so aspirational way to aim for the new institutions in Indo-Pacific. But in order to have the platform, but everybody who are actually engaged in this concept can plug and play in this Indo-Pacific concept. And I do not see that any kind of particular appetite for major powers to create the new institution based on the Indo-Pacific. So I would say Indo-Pacific is for everyone who can actually join in these principles and also the objectives. And finally is a commitment for the peace and stability. And I think it is a very important platform for forging Indo-Pacific regional concepts. For the Japanese government case, that is to especially focus on the capacity buildings and also the humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. But one thing you can actually remind is that there has been the strategic backgrounds why that Japanese government has been forging this region, and everybody has been paying much attention to this concept. And I think there has been the macro scope background, and you can find, as Ambassador has indicated, there has been the return of geopolitics. And also you can find the geopolitical recession and also the expanding geoeconomics as macro range trends, why this concept has been promoted. So let me just to give you one example that, back in 2000, that the major trends of the international relation, we call it, the emergence of globalization, and many have told us that now the era of geopolitics is over. Now everybody who can plug and play to the globalization have a same ground of the competitions. So all the kind of the state-to-state power struggle is over. That was the trend we had back in early 2000. But in 2010s, as you can see, that there has been the rise of power struggle among the major players, especially among those emerging powers, Russia, Iran, China, and everybody has to pay attention to what could be their next steps, especially to the challenge of maintaining the status quo in international orders in every spectrum of those regional affairs. And the second, what I mentioned by the geopolitical recession was that especially for the NATO countries, in 2000, they are talking about the global affairs. In the UK, national security strategy, the NATO strategy, they are talking about, NATO responsive force can dispatch their forces within like 24 hours anywhere in the globe. And they can actually play a role of the, peacekeeping, peace enforcement, peace rehabilitation processes, or whatever they wish to forge, because they identify themselves as a global power, right? And also back in 2000, Japan-US alliance was also emphasizing its global role, especially by joining the anti-terrorism warfare. We are sending our forces to Indian Ocean for the refueling missions to coalition forces. We helped the kind of Iraq rehabilitation process by sending our ground self-defense force there. So our strategic map has been pretty much global back in early 2000s. But now we are very busy ourselves. All the EU member states are dealing with assertive Russias and refugee inflows from the Syrian internal conflicts and growing threats of the terrorism, and they all have to deal with their internal problems. And that's same for Japan. We have to deal with North Korea. They are developing missiles and nuclear weapons, rise of China, maritime challenges, and those actually occupy the whole priorities of the security concerns. So that our geographical map, interestingly, ironically, has been shrinked, but with lots of density of the problems that we need to deal with. And then what we have is a kind of a large vacuum in the Eurasian continents, where the emerging power is aspiring for the opportunity of growth. But obviously that the major power, G7 country, have been very busy in engaging every spectrum of the issue they face, so that kind of vacuum has been filled by newly emerging players like China to expand its Belt and Road initiatives, and Russia to expand its Eurasian economic cooperation programs abroad. And those are, I think, one of the very important issue why we need to have the alternative kind of regional framework like Indo-Pacific concept. And let me just to raise a few what has been the the Japanese concern to promote this concept. And you can divide it into security and defense and the geo-economic outreach. With the security and defense, obviously, one of the important aspects of maintaining the security status quo in this region is how to engage United States as a responsible and a credible player in this region. In the first kind of slide, I mentioned about the peace and security. Japan has emphasized on capacity building and HADR, but that's a kind of a tactical way to how we can engage in the region. But overall, I think one of the essential pillar of the maintaining this security order is how to maintain, as I mentioned, that the visible, I think, engagement of the United States. But obviously, the United States has been facing with lots of structural problems, as we saw in Afghanistan and, in the recent affairs, and how to deal with European states. I think that there has to be, the requirement of the huge support that the regional player needs to collaborate together, how we can really share the role play together with the United States. So that actually created the kind of network security cooperation among those allies and partnership across the Indo-Pacific region. And also, if you look at the geo-economic outreaches, and this is also have opportunity of the robust cooperation and also for the cooperation. And when you look at how we try to promote the economic partnership strategies, we all engage in the bilateral free trade agreement or the economic partnership agreement with concerned states. But another kind of outreach is to how we can really wrap things up as a regional concept. And then those kind of regional concepts, there has been a variety of the path that we can achieve. One of the paths we are going to pursue is so-called the CPTPP, and that has been going through a very complex processes because the United States has withdrawn from the processes, but Japan has taken over the initiatives to forge the new regional partnership through the CPTPP. Without the United States. We wish the United States to become back, but this has been one of the the benchmark processes to forge the economic order in this region. Very interesting kind of phenomena is that the UK is now applying to the CPTPP, and several days ago, China expressed its own kind of appetite to be part of the CPTPP too. So that will be a very interesting interaction has been going forward. And another issue we have is RCEP, a regional, a comprehensive economic partnership that is together with China, and that also creates the, the new opportunity for the wider regional players to forge the economic partnership in those regions. So I know the time is limited, so let me just to take a few minutes to just to provide what could be the major opportunities and challenges for this concept. And I think that Indo-Pacific would provide the new framework of competition and cooperation in the 21st century. And obviously that there has been the power divergence in this region. It's not only G7 that really rule out the whole regional order in this region, but there has been the emerging players who has become the very influential players in the regional order. But those emerging nations, it is not only the like-minded states, but there has been so-called challenging aspects by the authoritarian rules represented by Russia, China, and all the others. And they are not always the collaborative, accommodating players to the existing international order. And sometimes they try to change significantly the existing rules in favor of their domestic context. So I think it is very important to forge the coalition among the like-minded states. What could be our favorable balance of power and also the economic order, and also the base of the societal standing, how to deal with the 21st century order. Otherwise, those emerging players will increasingly have a strong influence, to penetrate into other, emerging states in the region. So this is a very important competitive ground. What kind of regional order should be, materialized in coming years. And I think Indo-Pacific has been one of the iconic strategy for this, the aspired regional order in coming years. And this is, I think, one of the reasons why those major players wish to be part of this Indo-Pacific concept. And as you can see, I actually copied from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and there are so many informations have been involved, but this has been the compilation of how those players try to collaborate and plug and play on this Indo-Pacific concept. And as Ambassador mentioned, that just recently that the EU has finalized its own Indo-Pacific strategy concept, as to provide a platform for the EU member states to be part of this Indo-Pacific regions. So let me finish my initial remark by just to provide my own thoughts, what could be the opportunity of this Indo-Pacific concept, especially for people in Georgia and the Georgian government and the private sectors to oversight this processes. And I think this could be a big opportunity, especially for Georgia to forge so-called the gateway strategy into the Indo-Pacific, but because this is, first of all, this is a strategic partnership among like-minded states. And so, and I think Georgia can be a huge partner with those like-minded states coalition, and that involves EU, Japan, United States, and Australia, Oceanic states, and India, and those other states as well. And secondly, that also become an important platform for promoting the infrastructure and the market connectivity. Japan, together with other partner, has been forging. It is very important to promote so-called quality infrastructure investment. We actually forged this concept inside at G20 and has been adopted as principles. And that is to promote the longer term sustainability of the economic investment and developments projects. also we are referring to the other standards has been rising, and we are trying to have a more like a competing processes. What should be the desirable standards for the quality infrastructures, and that can be promoted with the hard connectivity and soft connectivity as been outlined here. And I think second, and I'll finish here, is that both Tokyo and Georgia can actually have a so-called cross-referencing type of strategic dialogues together. And because we, as Chairman Kipiani also mentioned about, Georgia is a Black Sea state, and we are also the maritime states facing Sea of Japan, East China Sea, and South China Sea. And those have been challenged by the maritime expansion of the neighboring states. So we call it gray zone challenges because it's not the all world war, but it's not all out peace situation, but something in between have been happening. When we talk about the remote island defense or how to maintain the maritime order, maritime jurisdictions, we really need to forge the new concept to deal with the gray zone challenges. And I think that this is also the issue that the Georgian government has now been facing in the maritime front. And the second is also the newly emerging concept. It's called economic security, and that has been the President Biden's important projects has been going on. But what kind of digital infrastructures, open RAN devices, B2B, B2C services, and what kind of like a digitalization can be done in the public domain? We find the several kind of competing standards what to be adopted. And I think those are, common issues that Japan and Georgia are currently facing. And I think that will also provide the great opportunity for both of us to, discuss further. So I think I spent a lot of time, and I'd like to stop here and looking forward to the discussion. Thank you again very much for providing me such a great opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Jimbo. Although it was quite tight time limits, but you gave an excellent summary on the region and of the region. The region which has always been interesting, but was a bit wider for the last decades of the Cold War and the aftermath of the Cold War. But you have indicated and pointed out correctly that the big geopolitics is getting back to the region. It's always been there, but the point this time that some people try to escape, this connotation of the great power competition, but it is emerging. And this type of great power competition is really very unique and very new because it is devoid of ideologies, and it's more about extending influences. And therefore, how this design, and you presented an excellent overview of developments of various structures, both security-wise and economically-wise. I think that gave a very good insight to those Georgians who are interested with the region and keen to investigate more, and those who already doing some work and sort of are looking for new directions. And thank you so much indeed for providing with those new directions. And I also spotted several very good hints or clues from your side, because you made an excellent point when you spoke about a new alliance of like-minded nations. And we speak about the alliance of the like-minded nations. It's not about Indo-Pacific as such, but Indo-Pacific plus, if you will. And regardless of the differences in scale, economy, etc., I think Georgia could find its own place, modest, but still its own place in the concept of Indo-Pacific plus. But that is, of course, entirely up to the foreign policy makers of Japan, how countries like Georgia, could be included into the broader picture. So thank you so much indeed, and I'll get back to you with a few questions at the end of our webinar. Dr. Avdaliani, thank you again for joining us, and please give your insight of how the things stand in the region. So thank you again, and we'll look forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Jimbo, Victor. Yes, basically, I would start with just a brief explanation why the region, well, Indo-Pacific region, Indo-Pacific concept is important. Well, basically, I think what we see nowadays is the continuation of what we saw in the Middle Ages or even in later period when, let's say, two oceans, basically Indian and Pacific Oceans, were interconnected in terms of trade and political relations. And if you look at the various historical sources from Marco Polo to Ibn Battuta and others, they basically were describing how China and surrounding islands and waters were essentially linked, interconnected to modern day Indonesia, Malaysia, modern day India, and then even to eastern part of Africa. So this concept of Indo-Pacific space, although in name it might be a new one, but in reality, it has always been on the ground, I would say, in existence. And it was very strange when some countries were and are still against this concept of Indo-Pacific and prefer Asian region, or I would say Asia-Pacific region concept. So I think that now is the time that Indo-Pacific concept should be appropriately evaluated and be regarded as a proper name for what is going on the ground. And as I said, it has deep roots into Middle Ages, and some might even argue that into ancient history. So basically, these two regions are interconnected politically, economically, and it's no, I would say, surprise that we've got nowadays China very deeply linked to what's going on in the Indian Ocean. So China is expanding its economic presence there. They're building up ports and various infrastructure near and around India, in eastern part of Africa, in Southeast Asia. And I would say that one of the drivers behind the emergence of Indo-Pacific region is, of course, China. And though China is against this very concept, as is Russia and some other countries, Beijing, with its policies, was essentially a motivator, basically, for this concept to emerge, because through Chinese, as I argued, through Chinese activities, Pacific region became very much interrelated to the Indian Ocean. Another idea is, of course, that what's happening in the huge Indo-Pacific region, where most of the world's economy or trade will be or already is taking place, and where most of the population lives, and likely geopolitical game will be played out. We've got the essentially, we see this concept as a part of the emerging new world order. And it's no wonder that, it's no surprise, I would say, that the emergence of the Middle East of the Indo-Pacific region took place at the time when the unipolar moment of United States of America came to an end. So I believe that these two concepts, these two processes are deeply interrelated. So what we will see in Indo-Pacific region will have a primary impact, major impact on the New World Order. And this New World Order, of course, will be much more chaotic than what we've got nowadays. So we are moving from unipolar moment, from active expansion of liberal internationalism to something else. And this something else is a more chaotic world. The world which will be based on a multipolar system. And in this multipolar system, of course, Indo-Pacific region plays a critical role for those very reasons which Professor JIMBO in his lecture, in his presentation, basically explained. But what's important perhaps is that the Indo-Pacific region will be the major, perhaps, component in the emerging world order. And by that, I mean that all the countries around the world will be focusing on what is going on in this huge expanse from Africa to China, Japan, and even Alaska. So this is important because of the economy, because of trade, because of huge human resources, and so on and so on. And we see that NATO and many other actors are now considering a new approach to Indo-Pacific region. And it was already mentioned that the EU has just published, recently published its strategy towards this region. And over the past year, there were some interesting statements made by NATO officials on how the alliance should be more actively engaged in the developments of Indo-Pacific region. This doesn't, of course, mean that a military component will be used right away, but those statements are nevertheless indicative that the region attracts all the players around the world. And then we've got the US, which, and I'm gradually moving to the importance of the region for Georgia and for the entire region, the wider Black Sea region. And then, of course, we've got the US. For the US, a maritime country, a maritime empire, as some Western scholars argue. This is a region where US power rests. So essentially, if you lose the influence in the Indo-Pacific region, you are no longer able to rule the world through the control of the oceans. And this is a cornerstone of the US strategy towards maintaining its primacy in the world. And this is where it's very important for Georgia and for the wider Black Sea region, because the wider Black Sea region has seen over the past several decades an active engagement from America. This ranged from economic incentives to at times military moves and probable, potential NATO expansion eastwards. I mean, from Western Europe, from Central Europe to Eastern Europe to wider Black Sea region. And considering the fact that we've got China-US rivalry, competition, global competition in every sphere, you see the US shifting its attention from many regions in Western Asia to Indo-Pacific region. And I would argue that the withdrawal from Afghanistan, however mistaken it is for many analysts in the West and however chaotic it was, still is a very important move made by Washington, basically with the aim to concentrate more its resources on the Indo-Pacific region. And I would argue that the more US is engaged in the Indo-Pacific region and the AUKUS between United States, Australia, and Great Britain is yet another sign, another move in that direction. You will have America less and less interested or willing, basically, to engage the wider Black Sea region. Of course, this does not mean the total abandonment of its critical interests in the region where Georgia is, but nevertheless, there will be some bigger reticence, I would say, on the part of from the U.S. policymakers to dedicate its economic, military, or even diplomatic resources in this part of the world. So I would argue that Indo-Pacific region has a critical importance, critical influence for not only the regions, the countries and smaller regions which we have from Africa to China and Japan, but also for the rest of the world, and even for a geographically closed South Caucasus, Georgia, and wider Black Sea region. This is of utmost importance because of the changing nature of balance of power between the US and China. So, and my last point, and that will be the end of my presentation, is that how Georgia and Japan could cooperate on that front. And I believe that some interesting parallels could be made with what Japan is doing in Central Asia. So Japan, like China, Russia, and other countries, sort of introduced a Japan entire Central Asia or 5 Central Asian countries forum. So they range, the negotiations range from economy to some trade, economy, and some cultural cooperation. And I believe that similar, maybe not on that big level, I would say, but similar initiatives could be introduced between Japan and the Black Sea countries, and Georgia could play in that sense pivotal role, I would say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Avdaliani. And just I was thinking that from my experience with webinars, gentlemen, that more interesting webinars we have, more we're limited in time, and this is sort of, these discussions go to the same observation from my end. And therefore, with that in mind, let me. I had several questions, but let me combine. So, in the experience of time, we have enough time space to address more or less. Otherwise, of course, 1 hour is not enough to cover all the range of issues. Dr. Jimbo, Dr. Avdaliani, let me phrase the same question to both of you. Well, in the Pacific, critics say that there is not enough resources at this moment in the Pacific to stand up to increasingly revisionist policies of certain states. That criticism goes essentially and primarily for the posture of the United States, although Dr. Avdaliani has mentioned the last initiative of AUKUS, which is still under the discussions, especially in terms how AUKUS could have an impact, and to what extent could have an impact on the Quad. That's one issue, but nevertheless, this is one of the points. those critics well-founded, especially when you take into account that in the Pacific and resilience in the Pacific, it's not just something which has to be viewed from the military standpoint, but from economical standpoint. And the issue when we speak especially about China, which combines commerce and defense, and they do not distinguish those two from each other. Again, probably to some extent, that critic has its own legitimacy, because the countries in the region, like-minded countries in the region, they don't play by the same rules, I would say, as China plays. And probably, that by definition, that gives already some handicap to China. So this is something, probably which, with all the appreciations of the time, we should explore. And two last points. The soft impact power of Japan and Indo-Pacific democracies, especially when we take into account that the competition, it's not primarily around Senkaku, but around across many small islands in the Indo-Pacific, and that is where the real competition was in the most robust terms. And the last point, which I'm very much tempted to ask Dr. Jimbo, it's about Taiwan. Of the recent times, Taiwan has popped up very clearly in Japan's foreign policy discussions, which is not surprising because the freedom of navigation in the Taiwan Straits is as important as the freedom of navigation in the Malacca Strait. So this again, when we speak about interconnectivity, interdependency, all those issues, which perhaps on the surface are different from each other, but they're all combined in the same portfolio of the freedom of a maritime navigation and open navigation in the Pacific. So I would rather stop here because I'm tempted to go further and further, but again, not to abuse my influence as a chair. I would stop here. And same question to you, Dr. Jimbo, and to you, Dr. Avdaliani. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you very much. Let me start. And these are great and big questions, and it's quite difficult to answer in the limited time frame. But let me try. First, about the cohesiveness of the Indo-Pacific region. Of course, that's a vast region that covers so many percentage of the globe. And what can you find in common as the common platform to play against some types of the objectives? And I would like to mention that Indo-Pacific can be only successful if anyone can actually claim the copyright of holding this concept, because you can find the various versions of the Indo-Pacific strategy by Japan, by United States, Australia, and by EU. We find lots of commonality, but there have been significant components of the differences, especially on the priorities. United States may be focusing on its own prioritization, whereas Japan may be emphasizing something else. And I think everybody can actually share the common platforms of the different those priorities. This is why that the Indo-Pacific can be wide enough. Everybody can actually share some common platforms. So that I do not really wish to emphasize the cohesiveness itself has been the major values of the Indo-Pacific, but I think it's a diversity of the participating conditions of the Indo-Pacific can be a very important strength of the Indo-Pacific region. And I think that this concept can go along with this kind of embracing diversity type of approaches. And secondly, on the economic outreaches, and I think Dr. Kipiani is right that China is playing a very tactical game with expanding its own economic influences. packaging together its own infrastructure projects, financings, and also the ecosystem that they can, bring about. So they can actually penetrate into the, deep enough to the society, change the lifestyles with the Chinese products and services. And I think, the like-minded states have been in the tough conditions to compete because, as Dr. Kipiani, correctly pointed out, because we have a very different standards of engaging in those economy. But I think in terms of implementing our strategy on the economic domain, what should be emphasized is that we do have a rule-based platform and also the sustainable economic growth and the development models that eventually will attract. There has been the pathway where you can actually stick to the so-called G20 principles in order to adhere to those standards. You may, in the long time ahead, in looking at 10 to 20 years time frame, there has been the common wisdom of the country's development, what kind of standards you need to pursue, and you cannot really just to have quick solutions to maintain the authoritarian rules by the economic development by accepting some kinds of those the economic model that you can really adhere to. But I think there will be a more continuous kind of prosperous kind of model that you can go through, and these should be the way that we should approach, especially to those emerging economies in the Indo-Pacific region. You also mentioned about the Taiwan, and this is a huge issue that we now are currently facing, because Taiwan is in the critical condition facing with Chinese, emerging influence to the geopolitically and also to the internal society. But we are now embracing the Taiwanese aspiration to maintain its status quo, and also we find that the more consolidation of so-called Taiwanese identity, a part of those Chinese mainland kind of nationalization projects. And I think that can really attract the international attentions, and something that we wish to promote is the making this issue internationalized. Something that China wants to play is that this is a domestic issue, so that no third country can actually intervene these internal problems. And we deny that. This is the international issues that every international community needs to be paying attention. In that context, I think, European states, including Georgia's, I think, interest in engaging Taiwan is a very important force multiplier to support these issues, because everybody now think is the Taiwan Strait issues is the international issues, and in that regard, I think that international commitments to this issue is the essence to deal with this problem. I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much indeed. You reminded the audience very rightly that various countries in the Pacific, it's also about various capacities and varying interests, and therefore when we speak about cohesiveness, keeping the big about keeping the big diplomatic coalition. Dr. Avdaliani, if you may please in 3-4 minutes touch on those issues which Dr. JIMBO have not left to you, I would say.
Thank you, Victor, very much. Yes, I would argue that considering the large expanse of the region, of the concept, essentially, of the concept basically covering from this space from Africa to Japan and two regions, we cannot really, and I agree with Professor JIMBO, we cannot really expect having a unified vision. Many countries, different geographies for each of the state, different geopolitical to the political cultures, and so on and so on. And it's impossible simply. And in that regard, I think what the US does for the moment with Quad and even with AUKUS, I see them as complementary initiatives and not initiatives which exclude each other. So I would even think that in the future, we might have some additional initiatives where the US might forge a deeper alliance or introduce some initiative with other countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, Japan, or others. Of course, all depends on various political contexts, and relations with Indonesia and Malaysia are not that great as with Australia. That's all clear. But what I'm trying to say here is that you cannot have one unified strategy there, and you have to play with various players differently. And in that sense, I think AUKUS and Quad, they are simply natural developments considering the realities on the ground. Natural developments because you have to introduce various initiatives complementary to each other, but in the way which correlate with each other and help each other in case of crisis. And I think we are only in the beginning, in the initial stages, I would say, of the emerging strategy, emerging strategies on US strategies on the Indo-Pacific region, and there is much to happen in the coming months or even years. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Avdaliani. And before we proceed to concluding remarks, His Excellency, and on my own, I would remind the audience, or I would ask the audience kindly that to complete the questionnaire, which will appear after completing this webinar as probably the very first comment to the webinar discussion. So we would greatly appreciate any feedback. And as much that feedback is, the better for us to navigate in terms of our future discussions. So, Your Excellency, if you wish to say some notes, we would be grateful to you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. So I was listening to the discussions with great interest. It gives us a lot of food for thought for us who actually have to implement the policies and promote the relations between Japan and this region. So maybe 2 points that I want to make in response to today's discussion. One is what Emil-san mentioned about Japan's role in the Caucasus. You said we can base our policy modeling after Japan, Central Asia, for example. What we do with Central Asia is not tremendously different from what we do in the Caucasus. We continuously holding Japan, Central Asia dialogue at various levels. And I think the last one was about infrastructure or connectivity. It's true that we also had in mind with the connection between Central Asia and South Asia. I think our colleagues, Morita-san, who is participating from Tokyo, knows much better than I do, because they're also dealing with Central Asian countries. But of course, the Afghanistan here comes into play. Of course, we need to have much more time now after Taliban's rise. But I think this connection with India. So we apply these discussions. I think we can also discuss establish more discussions with Japan, between Japan and Caucasus countries in terms of connectivity, especially infrastructure, but also energy. Because of course Azerbaijan as energy producing countries. They want to produce cleaner energy to Europe. So there are a lot of things that we can do in terms of applying many concepts, old and new, that Professor Jimbo mentioned, starting from digital connectivity as well as new recyclable energies that is so necessary even for the energy producing countries like Azerbaijan. And that actually that leads to the point that the professor mentioned about the 21st century type of new order. We're now trying to not just only emphasize the existing traditional liberal order, but how we can apply the values and principles that supported this order to the new technologies. That's why he was mentioning 5G or even 6G. In Japan now we're discussing 6G. I don't know whether we could be successful in 6G or not. It's a huge question, but I think the discussions on these new issues really is quite important in order to capture the emerging opportunities in this region. The last point I want to make is, I will just be brief here, about the concern of some kind of a weakening US engagement in this region because of the, I remember, Victor, you mentioned the word pivot, but I don't think Biden administration is no longer using the pivot wording, different from Obama administration. So I think they're now, Biden is trying to forge a multilateral cooperation in various fronts of the world, and including the Indo-Pacific itself. So in case of the Caucasus region, I think that's probably the case. Starting from NATO, which is a multilateral organization, but also other like-minded countries' involvement in order to forge the wider Black Sea issues. So I'll stop here, but I want to thank very much Victor and Emil for your active participation, especially the Geocase for arranging this. Thank you so much. And again, Jimbo-san, thank you so much for your excellent presentation.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you so much indeed, not just for your input in course of the seminar, but for setting up this webinar, because without your personal participation and the participation of your colleagues, that this webinar would not be taking its place. So thank you so much indeed. Two key connotations which I picked up among many others, that this time is ripe for interesting opportunities, and the second connotation which I would emphasize, like-minded nations, like-minded countries. This is very important because this identifies a broader spectrum without formal affiliations and without sort of any formalities. So this is very important when we speak about bringing closer Japan and Georgia in many, many possible respects. So thank you so much indeed, and let me again thank you most wholeheartedly, Dr. Jimbo. Thank you so much indeed. We really, it's an honor for us to having you on this webinar. And you mentioned then when hopefully the travel restrictions would be lifted, we very much look forward to see you in Tbilisi and show you that Georgian hospitality, which albeit not any different from Japanese hospitality. So you would feel yourself at home, I'm pretty sure. So thank you so much indeed. Thank you, Dr. Avdaliani, and let me thank the audience, and let me conclude at this point, and let me again kindly remind about the questionnaire. Feeling that questionnaire would be very much appreciated. Have a good day on the Georgian side, have a good evening on the Japanese side, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.